What up, everybody? This is Becoming the HubSpot Superadmin. I'm your host, Matt Bolian. I'm with Super, and today we have a Supe, a HubSpot superhero coming all the way from Buenos Aires, Argentina. It is Joe Davies. He is a fractional RevOps at Sepha. He's the head of that. He's the man. He's a legend, and he's going to talk to us today about his journey of finding himself becoming a superhero in HubSpot. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt. Thank you. And cheers, everyone, for listening in.
Well, Joe, we like to welcome all our guests here for the most important question possible. And that question is, can you tell us something that no one knows about you except for your mother?
Oh, you really put me on the spot there. Okay, I've got something. When I was like a really young kid, I was actually really good at knitting, which no one would guess that about me now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you still knit?
No, haven't done for like decades.
Okay.
Maybe I should get back into it. I don't know.
What brought you to, what's your favorite thing about living in an expat in Argentina? I'm assuming you're an expat with the accent, right? So this is making it something.
Oh yeah, I mean, I my usual base is London, so I usually just come here for the winter months because it's pretty grim in the UK. February, January, so and my partner's family's from here, so we just fly out and visit family, head over to Mendoza, bit of the wine country, bit of Patagonia, that kind of thing. Quite lucky in what I do is I get to travel as well as work, so yeah, make the most of that.
I love it. So Joe's like a bird that migrates based on weather patterns. I like this.
Yeah.
See, we got some great. Okay, so this brings us to the meat of this story about becoming a HubSpot superadmin. I mean, you do this as a living. This is how you are able to live in Argentina and live in London and travel the world. You got really good at HubSpot. What were you doing before you decided to make HubSpot your superpower?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I probably shouldn't say this, but I was a bit all over the place, really. I was of a scientific background originally. I studied chemistry, never really used that. I found parts of it interesting, but, you know, it's basically just been a very expensive piece of paper that I've got. And yeah, I did the typical like traveling thing in my early 20s and was, yeah, just a bit lost, and then kind of came back to the UK, and kind of my first break happened to be in Manchester in the north of the UK, with some really good mentors of mine back in the day, Tim and Dylan, Tim Borthwick, Dylan Pemberton, shout out to those guys. But yeah, kind of just packed up my things and moved to a city where I knew no one and went in for an unpaid internship, and was at two kind of sister companies, one being a marketing automation consultancy that primarily focused on Acton, and the other being a data sales and data analytics company. So I think having that foundation in data really has helped me in my career. And yeah, kind of learning the ropes with Acton and then moving on to HubSpot later. Then from there, I just kind of, we got a client that used HubSpot, and I don't know what it is that drew me to it, but I was just like, I'm going to learn everything there is to know about this. And just like kind of became slightly obsessive about it. I think, like I said, my mentors there were really good for helping me with direction and kind of show me what was out there and what was possible. And from there, I kind of went on to work with a company called Don't Be Shy, who are a award-winning digital agency based in central Manchester. And, you know, we did some really great things there. I started off as a marketing automation manager and moved on to kind of leading the MA team there. Focusing on Pardot and HubSpot implementations, training, audits, long-term strategy, and yeah, just kind of really, really like got a little bit obsessed with HubSpot. I don't know. It's been a good ride.
I'm gonna make a quick pit stop.
Yeah.
Because this is, you just packed a lot.
Yeah.
In the short, what I love. So I'm gonna make sure I heard this correct. 'Cause I love this about the HubSpot ecosystem. You especially in this, I would say HubSpot's up and coming, and it's starting to become widespread.
Yeah.
But part of it is like, is we think about the professionals in the ecosystem today. There's so many paths. Jojo said, hey, I went to get a chemistry degree. in the sciences. I then traveled. I then took an unpaid internship, moved everything to go to Manchester, started on Acton, and then started to find about HubSpot and then became obsessed about it. Like that is a cool, like that's awesome.
It's pretty random, right?
Cool. Yeah, no, but it's like that's how a lot of people are finding your ways into it. What about you said I became obsessed about it? So you at this point, if you're an Acton's not bad. You have Acton, Marketo, Active Campaign. I'm trying Pardot at that point before it got renamed to Marketing Cloud. What about HubSpot? Because what year was this?
Oh, like 2014, 15.
Okay. So HubSpot's still new. I mean, they're known for their marketing automation. In I think it was 14, they announced that they had a CRM at this point.
Yeah.
And so at that point is when you jumped in. What about it was like, okay, this is almost 10 years ago. It's a decade ago. What about this that said, I'm going to obsess about this. This is why I want to make a career.
Yeah, I mean, I think going kind of first working with Acton and learning a bit about what was possible, and then seeing what you could actually do in HubSpot, which even now compared to then isn't a lot, but I just the user interface was infinitely better. The training then was excellent as it is now, and I think it to go back to what you said, I think it's exactly that thing of you don't need any kind of formal background to become excellent at this. There isn't a degree or a particular course that you need to take, or you can go and take really to become good at it. It's just about, there's a lot of career potential there if you want to do it, and it's a lot of fun as well. Like if you're quite like into solving puzzles and like have that kind of logic style brain, I think that's really where you can just, run wild with it and have a lot of fun. So I just I love the data side because I'd already had that background, and I just saw like I could do so much with data in this platform. And little did I know where that would take me.
I love it. So now we're this transition period. You're about to go into the next portion. You've now moved to an award-winning like digital marketing. You were leading a team there, and you're making a transition. So what happens next? And so this is the point. You're still working two different systems, right? Like when did you become a HubSpot man? Yeah.
So I was always primarily HubSpot there. It was a HubSpot partner agency, but we just also had some Pardot clients as well. I think I found that really kind of expanded my skill set as well, seeing how things were done in other equivalent platforms. Well, equivalent's maybe a bit generous for Pardot, but other platforms. And I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, I won't lie, but it works like this in this one, it works like that in the other one. How can I actually kind of cross that logic over? But yeah, it's kind of always HubSpot. And I just kind of kept doubling down, and just really enjoying that progression. And I just kind of had that mindset of like, I just want to learn this. And I've always worked with some really talented people, which, is great to absorb information from and take people's skills and, their vision and just implementing that through the technology. I found I learned a lot doing that. And moving on from there, kind of it all started happening over lockdown, really. I think when everyone else was trying to look, doing wholesome activities like baking banana bread and maybe trying their hand at painting and stuff like that, I was like, I'm just going to do more HubSpot. And I ended up taking on a client in Australia. So I was outside of my 9 to 5. I had a client that basically saw me finish work and start work. I was sat in bed next to my partner writing emails about HubSpot and just kind of like non-stop. But that was a super rewarding experience. I kind of implemented HubSpot Enterprise and integrated it with Salesforce across a number of regions from Australia, New Zealand to Singapore, Hong Kong, and Australia and the UK, and did that for about 9 months. And that kind of really pushed things to the next step. I was always very customer facing with the role that I was doing, and running workshops and leading on project implementation plans and stuff like that. But it was that first experience of like, wow, I'm really kind of out here on my own now. If I don't know something, I have to figure it out, and there's nothing I can fall back on. So yeah, after that, it kind of just went from 0 to 100 there. I kind of went off on my own and never looked back, really.
Wow. So another way of putting it, in the U.S., people started watching the British baking show. That's what a lot of people did that's what my wife did. That's like my, and then we started baking, and thus we started baking. So this is cool. It's like during this time, I got really good at HubSpot. So there's a few points I want to take away that I heard that I think are super important. Number one is the people around you matter. And when you're working with like, hey, how do I get good at HubSpot? Sometimes it's just being around other people that love HubSpot too. And sharing the same interest matters. Number two is a hunger. It's like, I just want to know more. You use the word obsession, but it's like there's a hunger. And even to the point where it's like, I actually just enjoy doing this. I'd rather do this than sleep. And so that's an uncanny amount of hunger. But it's cool to like see how you learned coming from a non-business background and then like applying that to owning HubSpot. If you were to pick out, this is over a decade, right? Plus, like, you becoming a HubSpot superhero. What is the one biggest challenge? What was the biggest thing for you to overcome in your story in learning HubSpot and making this your specialty? Now even running a business that specializes in it.
I think probably, if I'm completely transparent and honest, would be overcoming a bit of a chip on my shoulder about coming from a non-traditional background, which I think, based on everything we've said, is kind of ridiculous, right? I think, this whole kind of marketing game is something that people fall into from all walks of life. Like, I've been working on teams where no one has a marketing degree. And I think a lot of it is logic based, it's common sense based, it's psychology based, it's really interesting. And there's such a wealth of information out there. You can get stuck in and learn anything if you want to. But yeah, I think that held me back the most, really, and probably drove me as well. So it kind of like twofold there. But I would say that was the biggest blocker for me, because, like I said, I've been blessed with having really good mentors throughout my career, and it's not always easy to find those. And worked with some incredibly talented people that, if you are open, collaborative, and willing to let someone else be the subject matter expert in the room, then you can do a lot with that.
I was in the military for 6.5 years and then went into HubSpot. And so there's this imposter syndrome that comes with, like, when you go into a room, it's, you're like, well, I have a marketing degree. You're like, well, I don't. So it's cool to hear. Like, and I think this is a very common thread. So it's cool thank you for sharing that, Joe. For those listening, for these other, the people that are saying, I'm going to become a HubSpot super admin. What are the three, and you may have more than three, but just like, what are the three specific things, tactical things you would tell people, hey, go do these and it will help you learn and you use the word flourish in this, like, become a professional inside HubSpot.
Yeah, unlike three things that my mum knows about me that other people don't, this is one I could probably go on forever with. I think the main thing for me, honestly, is just being super curious. Just like actively question everything. You're in a system where so much is possible. It is a complicated system, right? So rather than just taking things at surface level, just really go out of your way to understand the why or the how, and just get into that. And once you know it, once you've done something once, you know it then. And I found myself, sat late in the office just because I wanted to figure something out.
To give an example, in my mind, something that immediately came to mind when you were saying this, number one, is if someone came to Joe and said, hey, man, I need every deal in my pipeline to have a renewal deal. And when you hear this, you can do two things. There's more than two, but you can do two things. You can, that's easy. I'm going to go workflow and I'm going to create a renewal deal and it's automatically done. I'm going to notify this person. Or it's, why do you want this renewal deal?
Yeah.
What are we solving for? What's the problem? And the solution then becomes, it just becomes more, because now you're answering data problems, how we're reporting on it, who's being judged by it. And there's just a lot that comes. I love that. I'll just give an example of that.
Totally agree with that. And it's that thing of, I always talk about joining the dots, right? There's so many different things that need to connect in HubSpot in order for it to work really well and just provide data that, you can really get actionable insights off. So it does take that little bit of a balance between ego and humbleness to be like, okay, yeah, I really want to help you and I want to, deliver your vision, but also questioning people like, are you sure this is actually the right way to do this? Here's why I think it might not be.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we talked about, you said, I'm forcing you to do 3 and you probably do 18.
Yeah.
What's number 2?
Honestly, I think aim to be the person that everyone goes to for help and really thrive on that, Mm-hmm. It can be hard work at times and you do have to protect yourself from becoming, overloaded with work, balance your priorities, set, good boundaries and stuff. But being that person will ultimately see you working with leaders in all specialisms, people that know far more about their craft than you, and enable you to just absorb everything that they know through turning their vision into reality through HubSpot. And that is an incredibly valuable learning experience while also actually doing really good work for someone that needs it and will value it. So you're driving business change while also creating a learning experience for yourself.
How do people become that valuable?
So I think that this takes time, right? You're not going to be in your first years of working with HubSpot and be that person because, there's no replacement for time and experience. So, just learn your craft, focus on the things that is within your remit at that time, but also push for more. If there are people that are doing things that you're interested in, go sit with them, talk to them, find out what they're doing. It might not have any relation to your work, or, I find myself really interested in the work that designers do. I'm a technical person. I've got nothing to do with design. It's like the opposite end of the spectrum. But I've had really interesting conversations with designers, and it helps me with some of the stuff that I do in HubSpot, weirdly. And the same if you talk to developers or marketing people, content, campaigns, all this stuff, salespeople. It's fascinating. So just be interested and take your time. Think about, always be thinking ahead of where you want to get your skill set, because there's so much you can do with this platform. There's areas you can specialize in. You might want to be a sales ops person. You might want to be MarOps. Whatever it is, it's fine. Think ahead to those things and think about what can I learn right now that will get me to that point. Because all of a sudden, and without you really realizing that it's happened, it will all click into place and you'll suddenly just be really damn good at HubSpot, and you just will be that person that people go to because you'll start to develop a reputation in the place that you're working for. Like, oh yeah, HubSpot Joe will figure that out. He always knows what the answer is.
I love you said this, and it's difficult. I remember in my 20s, I probably wouldn't have accepted this answer. I'd been said, "No, Joe, give me very specific things to do." But the reality is, there's no. The specific thing to do is just solve the problems in front of you.
Yeah.
And then look for more problems, and then the agglomeration of problems and solving will create wisdom, and then that wisdom, then you become HubSpot Joe. You're like, that people have questions. I think like it is that just put your head down, come up for air, look where you're going, and then just come ask questions, be curious. So I love it.
Yeah.
What is numero? Oh, let me go numero tres. But what is number 3?
Yeah. So we kind of touched on this a bit earlier as we kind of went off on the topic a bit, but I really do think what has helped me is a little bit of ego. Back yourself, say yes and figure it out later. I've done that so many times in my career that it's, it comes with a bit of stress, it's not always easy, not always smooth, but, ultimately you can do it if you back yourself and you will figure it out, but just measure that with a bit of humbleness. You can always learn from others. You're not always going to be the smartest person in the room. Certainly if you're working with really talented sales leaders, marketing leaders, revenue ops leaders, and just think about your work. It's very easy to get stuck in a mindset of, I'm really good at this now. Like, I've done this. I've built a really good nurture campaign. I've smashed lead scoring, whatever it might be. Pick a thing. You've done it before. You have a process, right? But you need to have that humbleness and that self-awareness to just kind of retro your own work and your approaches and really break them down and think about, like, what actually didn't work here? What could have been done better? What was, how did I handle that situation with that person who was difficult, or where perhaps even I was difficult? I'm sure I've not always been the easiest person to work with. It's having that bit of introspection to, like, how can I do better? And you will just continue to grow. But a little bit of ego as well, a healthy dose.
Yeah, I've heard, to summarize this here, I heard be curious, be the person, aim to be the person that's like, hey, that's the HubSpot guru. And number 3, you say, like, a healthy dose of ego, which is really a belief in your future self. When I talk to anybody, is that number 3, Joe? I just, like, is my, like, favorite. It's like, hey, how do you become that person that everybody trusts? You just say yes. And and then you go back and you go to communities like Sprocketeer, or you go to communities like Wizard of Ops, and you answer, oh my gosh, I need to solve this problem. Please help me. You go to knowledge-based problems, and then you figure it out, and you have to believe in your future self. And that's where it's not necessarily ego as much as it is confidence.
Yes.
In your ability to learn. Yeah.
And that's it. Like, exactly as you say, there's so many resources out there, like Sprocketeer, other communities, resources online. The amount of problems I've solved simply by Googling it, or like, and I really shouldn't admit this, but I have, stress tested HubSpot live chat to the absolute brink with some really challenging stuff when I've just like, I really need a second pair of eyes on this, and all I've got is HubSpot live chat, right? Because it's 11 p.m. right now and I need an answer. And it's that thing of, like, there aren't these barriers in place to progress here if you want to really go for it. It's a wide open world, and it's not like, let's say you want to be a lawyer and you've got to jump through all these hoops to get to the levels that you need to get to and want to get to. If you've got, exactly as you say, that kind of forward mentality, that kind of drive to just, like, I want this, then it's there for you.
Joe, this has been fabulous. Thank you for the time. Question: if
My
people
pleasure.
want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of Joe?
Yeah, you can get me on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I've got quite a generic name. I'm sure there's thousands of Joe Davises on LinkedIn, but search me out. I'm at Sepha MA. And yeah, I'd love to chat. Any questions, any advice you'd like, I'm all ears.
I love it. Joe, thank you so much for being and sharing your story on becoming a HubSpot superadmin. I think it's so cool for people to see how others have connected to this community, and it's always different. Love it. If anybody has any questions, you may find Joe in the Sprocketeer community answering questions. You never know. You may have him answer your question. And when you have one of those poo-poo moments. So I appreciate it. Hey, everybody, stay awesome. Keep doing it big and never stop believing. Adios.